Right, and then we can get started with the first topic on our agenda, which is an update from Sergeant Joe Santolo and Officer Tom Domenico.
Thank you, Tony. Hi, good evening all. As I don't know if anybody's aware, but Officer Simons has retired. And so Tommy and I and Officer Mosley will be attending the meetings. Tommy Domenico, I think most of you might know him. He's born and raised in East Boston, 30 years on this job, most serving the East Boston community. So he'll update you with the stats and any incidents that occurred in the Orion Heights area, and then we can answer some questions. So Tommy, you there? You'll have to unmute his phone. Can you unmute him?
He should be able to unmute himself.
What do you say? I'll be right back.
All right, I think I might have it now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. And we're going to go over some of the crime stats first. And I just pulled up the stats from June 15th through July 19th. And they've been relatively even for the, no big increases or decreases. With the robberies, we had 2 district-wide. We had 2 domestic aggravated assaults. We had 4 residential burglaries and 29 larcenies. We had a total of 57 Part 1 crimes between June 15th and July 19th, which is relatively even, no big increases or decreases. Now, I just pulled up some of the incidents that we had, and on June 27th, we had an arrest up in Waldemar Avenue on a domestic where the victim suffered a knife wound to his arm. And on June 27th, Bennington and Leverett Ave, we had a kid struck on a bike. He wasn't really hurt that bad. He was taken to the hospital, but he was okay. Another address that's becoming concerning with us is 856 Saratoga Street. Several domestic calls there and disturbances, but we kind of get that under control now because the so-called troublemakers are going to be moving out of there soon. On July 14th, we had a drug arrest in front of Burger King. On the 18th of July, we had a OUI arrest up in Faywood Avenue. And over this past weekend, the only thing we really had in Orion Heights was a larceny from a construction site at 144 as the street. Now, just to let you know, on the construction sites, they've been hitting them pretty regularly in East Boston. Just went up the Heights, but they've been going after the tools and the copper wires and pipes. So that's something we got to still look at. And also the on the rise here is the phone scams. They're still happening. People call saying they're from Eversource or National Grid and they want $500 before they get off the phone through your credit card, or they're going to shut off your electric. That usually doesn't happen. Every once in a while, you get people to give them money, but if you get any calls like that, just don't give them anything. Just hang up on them. One big problem we've been having started in late April and it's continuing. We put a stop to it for about a month. Is up in McCullen Highway near Chelsea Street and the storage bin. It's becoming a hangout late at night with motorcycles, lowriders, and kids on bicycles. We've made a couple of arrests up there back in May and early June. It slowed down for a while, but now last week it seems to be starting up again. So we'll have to look at that again. July 4th weekend up the Heights was relatively quiet. We had some 911 calls for fireworks, but that's just about normal. And what I think is helping us out is the rain. It's been a rainy July, and that kind of keeps the crime down, which helps the police in a lot of ways. So that's about it up in Orion Heights. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them for you.
I have a question. There was
Sure.
some kind of incident that was going on at the new development near the pedestrian bridge that goes to Constitution Beach. I just saw that there were a bunch of like fire trucks and stuff out there at one point, and I was wondering if that was another kind of construction site break-in situation or if it was something else.
Well, do you have a date? I'll look into it for you. I know nothing about that one. If
No,
you
I
have a
don't
date,
know.
I'll what's that?
Oh, I can't recall what day it was. It was like a few weeks ago. I was just walking past and curious.
Well, it could have been a call for a medical assist or anything like that, but anything if, comes to your attention, if you have, either email us or call us at the office and I'll be happy to get back to you.
We do have a comment from Gail Miller saying, I sure wish you would curb the fireworks.
Hi, Gail, how are you?
Gail, can I ask you a question? Is anybody calling us? And they're calling 911 or calling the station?
You should be able to unmute, Gail.
No. Oh, she said yes.
She said yes.
Okay, I could look into what the result was of when the units are called down there. Most of the time, they see us, hear us coming, they duck away. It's hard to stop, but I'll let the captain know and maybe he'll address the roll call and have the units be more visible and look out for it. But you can I would call and ask for the duty supervisor if you're not getting any result from 911, and maybe he can send the car down there to the specific location. Any other questions?
Gail,
Yeah, I see the
You can
comment.
see
Yeah,
it.
we're sorry about that. We did go to a few places that we know who do the fireworks and we stopped them, but as you can imagine, we stopped 2 and then 10 more locations pop up. Any more questions?
I'm not seeing any more crop up in the chat.
Everyone have our email, our phone number to the CSO office. Anytime, like Tony, an incident like that, just give us a call. We'll let you know what's up, what's going on.
Will do. I'll remember that.
Okay, anytime. I can hang around too if anything pops up in the chat. So.
Cool. Thank you.
All right.
Up next, we have Jason Ruggiero with a Plan East Boston update.
Thank you so much, Tony. And thank you everyone for joining me tonight. Well, for letting me speak to you tonight. Everyone, my name is Jason Ruggiero. I work at the BPDA, the Boston Planning and Development Agency, as a community engagement manager. So it's really nice to see everyone again. I put a bunch of stuff in the chat and doesn't come through too well in the chat. So I'll try to do them one at a time. But just a quick update. So later this week, on Thursday evening at 6:30 p.m., we'll have a virtual listening session. And what that means is we'll have BPDA staff available to answer any questions and kind of talk through a recent document that we released. It's called Plan East Boston Squares and Corridors. So Plan East Boston is the neighborhood-wide ongoing planning initiative that's been happening for a little over 2 years, probably 2.5 years. And we just released our first batch or chapter of recommendations, and that is for East Boston Squares and main corridors. The next chapter of Plan East Boston will be neighborhood residential, which will be probably something that everyone's eagerly awaiting, which is updated zoning for really like kind of the core neighborhood residential fabric of the community. But this batch of recommendations is updates or recommendations for Orient Heights Square, Day Square, Maverick Square, Central Square, and a new square at Suffolk Downs. Thank you, Tony, for kind of formatting that for me. So we'll have recommendations for all of these 5 squares, as well as Bennington Street and Meridian Street, and maybe that's it. But in the document, it outlines those recommendations. And so the key important thing is that the community continues to be involved. So this is not the final plan. It's important that the community weigh in on the recommendations so they can evolve and be informed by what the community wants. So we've had a bunch of listening sessions. We'll continue to host them. But just a friendly reminder that the listening session that will encapsulate Orient Heights mostly, which will be Orient Heights Square, Suffolk Downs Square, and Bennington Street, is 6:30 on Thursday. It is in the chat. There's a Facebook link there. There's a direct link to our website. There's a lot of information there. So I will also put my email address in there as well. But again, just mainly a plea tonight for everyone to attend on Thursday night if you are available. If you're not available and still want to talk about the recommendations or just want to learn more about Plan East Boston or how you can
I think your microphone cut out a bit. I don't think we caught the last part, unless it's on my end. It might be my internet, but
No, it might be mine. Can you hear me?
yep, now I can hear you.
Okay, so yeah, I think everything's in the chat. I think I covered everything I wanted to cover. But again, if anyone has anything or wants to talk more, please shoot me an email. Gail, when are in-person meetings going to resume? As soon as the city of Boston allows us to. So we follow the BPDA, although we are kind of like a quasi agency, we do follow the city of Boston's direction on that. So whenever the city of Boston changes the restrictions to allow in-person engagement citywide, we will follow. Hopefully soon, Gail, believe me, we want to see everyone in person just as much as everyone else. Tony, again, thank you so much for the time, and thank you for reformatting that. Please click those links, or don't hesitate to reach out to me if anyone wants to talk more. Thank you so much, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well.
Thank you. And we'll pass the links along in your contact information when we send out the meeting minutes too.
Great. Thanks so much, Tony.
You're welcome. All right. So up next, we have some OHNC updates. I'm gonna share my screen. All right. So I put up the schedule for the 2021-2022 year. And I believe I caught all of the holidays. I know back in April, I missed Patriots Day because I was looking at like federal holidays specifically. So we do have the Zoom links up just for the next few meetings. August, we do not hold meetings as per the bylaws. There was a suggestion, I believe, by Karen Pearson to get some mayoral candidates together and go to the Y at Ashley Street and see if we could have some kind of like Q&A session. Trying to see if we can get back into the Y for both of our meetings, since we have our regularly scheduled Monday OHNC meetings, and then we have the design review committee meetings, which are on Thursdays. And we have that schedule up now, and same thing with the Zoom links and the development application form. I don't believe any of these Thursdays coincide with a holiday, but please do let me know if you happen to notice that any of these dates for either of the meetings coincides with any other holiday, religious holiday or otherwise. So to make sure that we don't do what I did on accident in April and coincide with Patriots Day. Let's see. So Gail's saying we should have ad hoc announcements that might not make it to the chair. What do you mean by that, Gail, if you don't mind? And you should have the ability to unmute if you want to. If not, you can use the chat.
Yeah, and most meetings, you know, will, if I'm on, yeah, most meetings have the courtesy of allowing for last minute announcements, last minute questions, last minute updates. And we never have the ability to do that because it's so tightly scheduled. So I see no harm in trying to allow for 5 or 10 minutes max. And if somebody wants to, you know, sign off, they can sign off. But for those that want to have announcements to the community made and published, you know, via this meeting, I think we should do that. So I don't see any problem with that.
We can set aside 5 or 10 minutes at the end, and if anyone
Yeah,
has
we
updates or
call it old business, new business. Like, you know, traditionally meetings have old business and new business. So I don't know.
sure, we can do that.
I mean, if the general population doesn't want to do it, well, then so be it. But if they do, it would be nice.
Yeah, we can try it out.
All
And
right, thank you.
hopefully we'll be able to get into the why. I am confirming what they have for like audio and video equipment there, just because I'd like to be able to have like a hybrid approach where people that can't join us in person are able to join via Zoom. Eric Doherty is asking for the sign-in sheet. Let me just post that again. So there's sign-in sheet. See, we also have Karen from Counselor Anissa's office, as well as Ibrahim from Counselor Lydia Edwards' office. All right. Oh, and Glorabel with Representative Adrian Madaro. Thank you all. Oh, also, I believe Adrian Madaro is running for state senate now.
Hello, this is Glorabel from Representative Adrian Madaro's office. Unfortunately, I'm unable to comment on anything. I believe nothing has been made public. I don't believe there's a race going on yet, though certainly happy. I'm sure he would be happy to talk offline.
Oh, apologies for that. I was informed by another member of the community, and they asked if I could let folks know. So sorry about that.
No worries. I'm sure more news will come out soon, and he would be more than happy to talk to the group. If you'd ever like him to come to the meeting, that's something he would be happy to do as well.
Thank you. And I put, let's see, we have some upcoming events that are sponsored by the city. There are a bunch of different fitness classes. Some are in person in parks. There's one at, which is it, Lepresti? Yeah, Lepresti Park on Sumner Street. They're doing yoga there on Mondays. I think actually right before this meeting, it's like 5 to 6 p.m. I want to say. There are some other ones across the city. Some of them are virtual, if you care to join those. And we also have, there's a neighborhood concert series that's going on August 4th at the same Lepresti Park. There is Veronica Robles performing. Let's see. We do have, just gonna check the participants list. We do have John Barrows attending, but I don't believe until 7 p.m. to answer questions. He's another mayoral candidate. I suppose if we could kill 10 minutes to get until he's able to join us, would we like to do the old business, new business type thing now, or should we save that for the end? Everything moved very quickly, so now we have 9 minutes to kill. Does anyone happen to know how the, like, I know we had a projector when we were doing the meetings at Ashley Street, but does anyone happen to know if that is owned by the Y? If that's something that they keep there, or if folks were bringing in their own equipment for these meetings?
Tony?
Yep.
This is Mary. My recollection is that most of the projectors that are there belong to the presenters. That would be the developers. And you mentioned audio, and that has been a recurring problem. There is really no sound system there. So, and we had talked about perhaps taking a collection up and buying one that worked in a consistent way. And that's a problem with that room because you fight with the AC and the heating systems for sound. But maybe things have changed. I'd venture to guess no, but they don't have a sound system there. And I think it does a disservice when we ask people to come and present and people in the back of the room can't hear. So that's it.
Thanks. Maybe I can swing by a thrift store or something and see if there's some old speakers and a receiver or something that we can use. I have a microphone, but my audio setup at home is just, I would have to tear everything out and schlep it over. I don't think it would be feasible. Let's see, Gail put in the chat, I have included a poster for a protest regarding the developments in Eastie on July 29th. Can that be shared? Sure. Let me see. I'll grab that and put a link to it in the chat. Just take 1 second. Oh. Facebook comments, there's, for some reason I don't see messages. Would you mind sending it to our email, Gail? And then we'll be able to get it from there. For some reason, under all messages for the Orient Heights Neighborhood Council inbox, I'm not seeing anything in there. It just says messages sent to your page will appear here.
I just posted on the Facebook page, I believe. On your Facebook page.
Let's see. They changed the UI here. It says Facebook Business Suite now. For some reason. Oh, I see it now. Oh, now there's stuff in here. Wait, that is, go back. It was just there. I'll go to activity. Apologies for my Facebook ineptitude. Ah, there it is. I have found it. So. Also regarding the EB Foundation grant, I did submit a request for a grant, I think in May, I want to say. Let me just share a link to that protest. It's the 29th outside of Wood Island train station. Oops, I accidentally just closed the chat.
Tony, when you put in the grant, what did you say you were going to use it for?
I'll have to bring it up, but I put in a bunch of like audio, video stuff in there, like a projector, some kind of like receivers, speakers, and microphone. I think I included, I'm not sure if I included the Zoom subscription in that.
Okay, I was just curious.
No, Gail, it wasn't for Zoom. And I think they were kind of expecting it to just be for Zoom at that point, but they had so many options on the forum. I was like, well, might as well ask for all this stuff. And I think they were kind of surprised. Hi, Team Barros is joining us. All right. Give them a second. We didn't receive any questions in advance for John Barros. So if anybody happens to have any that they want to ask, you're welcome to raise your hand or unmute in the event that too many people unmute at once. And we are actually at the point in our agenda, if you are able to start your presentation, Team Barros.
Hi, this is actually Lizzie, his campaign manager. I was just putting in the chat. He is finishing up with the Chinatown Downtown Neighborhood Association, so he is running a few minutes late. Or I'm sorry, the Chinatown South Cove Neighborhood Council. Just wanted to hop on and let you know. I think they were running a little behind, so then he's now running a little behind here.
Okay. Trying to think of other neighborhood business we can discuss in the meantime. Actually, I can, so when we resume in September, we have 5 Breed Street is back for the design review committee to review. I know that one was really contested because of the height and the lack of parking, although they are getting rid of a curb cut because it is in like that little parking lot area behind that garage gym thing. So that will be at our September 2nd design review committee meeting. And then on the 20th at our regular scheduled OHNC meeting, we have the first presentation from the folks that are doing the old casket company development. I guess they had like 100 something different developers apply, and the family really went through all of the applicants, and from what I have heard, it's going to be a combination of residential and retail space, but they're still working on it. I don't know any of the specifics. The 5 Breed Street is at the design review committee meeting. That's September 2nd. And then the first presentation just on like, it's from the consultant that is working with that development. It's like an introductory presentation. I don't know if they're going to have any design stuff to review at that point. From what I heard, they wouldn't even have anything ready until August at the earliest to discuss with us because the plans were still pretty up in the air. And since we don't have a meeting in August, we put it on for September. I think depending on, and we should do design review first on it, Gail, but I think she just kind of wants to give, the woman's name is Kate Kelly, who's with that development. And I think she wants to make an introduction first. But if they do have plans at that point, we can bring them into the design review committee meeting. Even, I think, about a week and a half, 2 weeks after that OHNC meeting, we'll have another design review committee meeting. So it could even be pretty soon after. Does anyone else happen to have any announcements from the community or anything? Any issues you've been experiencing? Any great news? I know some people were surprised to see that we didn't have any development presentations up for a vote tonight. I imagine we'll have a pretty full, at a minimum, design review committee meeting on September 2nd. Larry's asking, do developments slow down during the summers? Doesn't seem like it. I mean, I keep seeing things popping up, but as far as people reaching out to us, I haven't had that many like applications in the last couple of months. I think we got pretty swarmed earlier in this year with applications, and then for some reason it's been pretty quiet. There's only been a couple, like 1 or 2 for each meeting. Let's see, Gail said for design review, I would request some plans submitted beforehand, not just a day or 2. We do have, we do request like the ISD refusal letter and the presentations and stuff beforehand, but sometimes I'll go to grab those documents and it's either like just a blank document because they don't have it yet, or it's only the ISD refusal letter. So I'll try and, before I go to make the agenda for those meetings, just validate what's available and reach out to the person who submitted the application and see if they have any updated documents that they can give us. Oh, actually, I can, so on the topic of the boundaries, so that did not pass. Updating our boundaries, that vote did not pass. And I reached out to the Harborview Neighborhood Association to see if there would be any anything we could work out there, whether it's, you know, we have a joint meeting for properties that fall in that overlap, or if we just join together again in general. I think the other suggestion was to have developers, attorneys, and all that present at both of the meetings. I haven't heard back on if any of those options are satisfactory or would work out. But hopefully we can settle that, just so that people are aware if, say, there's a development on Trident Street, and that's in kind of that overlappy area. So Gail asked, what would we be reviewing then if no plans are available? That's a good point. Sometimes they don't have them, ready until like the day before or something. At least presentation wise, like sometimes we get like blueprints and not the presentation or just the letter. Also, interestingly, sometimes the refusal letter is incorrect and there are things on there that are wrong. That happened once previously. I think it was at one of the beach view ones that we were reviewing. And yeah, so we can circle back with Harborview. I can reach out to them again and see. I don't know that it would be that much extra work to try and either have, I don't want to speak for the people that have to do presentations, but I mean, it would be another night of them having to present to folks, but hopefully the feedback would be similar. Let's see. That's unacceptable that we cannot see the, oh, this is Gail, by the way, that I'm reading off. That's unacceptable that we cannot see their plans beforehand. If they are not ready, then tell them to come up when they have plans. I can do that. I can keep an eye on what gets uploaded to that form. And then if it's not the presentation and the ISD refusal letter, or if it's just a blank document, then I can reach out and say, you know, we will need this prior to the meeting. See, Larry's asking, does anyone know of a way to get updates on a project after the zoning board vote has occurred? I believe you could reach out to the Board of Appeal with the number that they assign for the property.
Hi, this is Karen from Council Wasabi George's office.
Hey.
Larry, today somebody asked me to get an update on a project that was approved by the ZBA in October of 2020. So I reached out to ISD and they gave me some information. So I would say that's the route you would go. Or if you have a particular project in mind, you can email me. I left my email on the chat, or you can give me a phone call.
Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
All right, and it looks like John Barros was able to join us.
Hi, yes. Good evening. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Great, so we didn't receive any questions in advance. I'm sure people will have some for you. Maybe just, I guess, tell us a little bit about yourself, your campaign, and get started.
Yes, thank you. As you heard, my name's John Barrows, born and raised in Roxbury to immigrant parents from West Africa. My parents came here to help provide a better opportunity in education specifically for us. And education was a big deal for us very early. At the age of 14, I got involved with my neighborhood to do environmental justice work. And I lived in a neighborhood where, you know, asthma was a real issue. We had the highest rate of asthma in the state in Roxbury, and I wanted to try to do something about it. In fact, my little cousin had, you know, a major asthma problem. And I remember him walking around with this little pump. And a couple of times I've seen the pump not work, and it's terrifying. So I wanted to do something to help my neighborhood get better, and helping to do lot cleanup, helping to push against the illegal trash transfer stations in our neighborhood to make it a better place for us in terms of air quality was an important piece of work. Years later, I became the executive director of the Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative, where we continue to help lead the change in our neighborhood by building affordable housing, more green space, an urban ecosystem for local food production. It was really important that we took charge in leading the transformation that was going to happen to our neighborhood in a way that we weren't displaced because the neighborhood was better. So we built an urban land trust that helped to protect that land, but also helped to protect affordability of housing and commercial space. It is in fact the largest urban land trust in the country. And then we got into education reform because many of our parents started talking about schools and schools needing to be better in our neighborhood. I helped to design and open 3 different schools in the city of Boston. And during that time, Mayor Menino invited me to be on the school committee, which was the first time that I sort of caught the bug around municipal leadership, recognizing the importance of leadership at that level and some of the decisions that were made. During that time on the school committee, we helped to pass the first in Boston's student weighted formula to make sure that money followed students in the city of Boston and in our school buildings. We also put a weighted formula on it so that there'd be more money that would follow our English language learners and special needs students, particularly, and then money that would follow schools that had a high rate of poverty. This was important work. After that, I ran for mayor and then became the chief of economic development when Marty Walsh asked me to come in and set up an economic development cabinet for the city of Boston. Proud of the work that we did there in helping to move Boston forward and employ people where unemployment fell to 2.4% right before the pandemic. where we doubled the money going to small businesses, doubled the money going to main streets, and help to better support our small businesses around the city, increase the jobs residency policy and percentage of people of color on construction jobs and local residents on construction jobs and women on construction jobs. Proud of the work that I've done in the last 7 years, but excited because Boston needs a lot more in the space of equity, in the space of good planning and neighborhood development to be running for mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm watching the chat to see if any questions come in. Do you happen to have a stance on climate change and what the city can do?
Absolutely. Climate change is a major issue. I do take a look at my website, but I'm just going to hit the 4 top things on climate change, which would be sea level rise, extreme precipitation, heat islands, and making sure that we are looking at tree coverage. When it comes to those 4 things, Boston actually has some really good plans, working with neighbors and other stakeholders to come up with Climate Ready Boston and the other neighborhood-based plans. There are about $3 billion of action we can take around flood barriers, parks on our waterfront, stormwater management, retrofits for buildings. And we need to come in and implement this. The biggest opportunity we have in doing that is to make sure that we take advantage of the Biden infrastructure program that Congress is looking at now, so that we can build out some of the actions that we've put in our plans to take, whether on the waterfront or storm management or building out more trees. It is critical, in fact, that we both build trees, plant trees in the city of Boston in public space, but also work to eliminate the threat to trees in public land, in public space. Part of the work that I've talked about doing is doing some land banking of some of our natural green spaces in Boston and making sure that we protect them from development. There are some areas in Boston that are beautiful natural areas, urban forestry areas that create an opportunity for Boston to continue to build out our green areas that are owned by city government and protected by city government. The other is to take a look at the permitting that's needed before anybody can cut down a tree. This is a conversation that has been heightened because of the mass and cast threat there as we look to redo that street. It's been heightened because of the work that was done or the work that's being talked about in South Boston. And so we need to do a better job of having some regulation and some consistency about big areas, but also small areas where people are cutting trees and what the alternatives are for that and how we can do a better job of protecting them.
Thank you. We have a question from Gail Miller in the chat saying, we are suffering from escalating air pollution here in Eastie. What commitment will you make to address the pollution realized from Logan Airport, as well as the transportation side of airport operations? We need to address asthma here in the community, and many are working to have air filters placed in schools and homes as mitigation for the impacts of pollution. How will you work with the airport to have them commit to this mitigation?
Yeah, Gail, great question. This is work that even as a chief of economic development, but before chief of economic development, as executive director of Dudley Street Neighbor Initiative, we help to be an advocate for the conversations that we had with Massport about the what's it called, the train, where the planes travel. But anyways, it is important that we partner with our neighborhood to talk to Massport about some of these impacts. And I know East Boston has organized around that over years. And as mayor, I will be a partner. Environmental justice is where I started doing organizing work. And it's important that we continue to have those conversations around air filtration, windows and what kind of windows we have. But I also think that the airplane routes need to always be revisited because they change too often. And before you know it, there was an agreement with Massport on where a plane would be traveling, and then that shifts. So we always need to make sure that we are meeting with Massport consistently to look at that and make sure that we know where they're traveling. so that we can send them where possible over the waterways as opposed to over our neighborhoods. It is critical. And so as mayor, I would work with you to make sure that we are mitigating the environmental injustice that East suffers because its proximity to the airport.
We have a comment from Mary Berninger saying, welcome to Orient Heights, Mr. Barrows. Clearly you learned the importance of being a man for others.
Mary, thank you for referring to my my BC High background, but I have learned the importance of being a man for others. And very early on, you know, I've been doing public and community service and community work my entire life. And, you know, never thought I would do it for government. I always thought I would do it in the nonprofit sector until I was appointed to the school committee. And then I realized, in fact, how important it is for us to be part of government and for us to make sure that government works for our neighborhoods, works for our communities, works for our families, and works for our people. And excited to be given the opportunity to have, you know, a possibility of being the next mayor.
We have another comment from Gail in the chat saying, small leaded gas planes are flying over all neighborhoods, and this outreach should be made to smaller aircraft like Cape Air.
That's right, Gail. Cape Air, I think besides or right behind JetBlue, Cape Air runs the most operations out of Logan. So we do need to look at it. We need to look at where they're flying and begin to have that conversation. I did not know that they were flying in all neighborhoods. In fact, most of Cape Air's flights, I believe, are towards the Cape. There's no reason for them to be flying in neighborhoods, but look forward to learning more about that.
Okay. We don't have, oh, do we have, oh, Gail said thank you. See if any more questions come up in the chat. If anyone does want to unmute and ask questions, feel free. As long as folks, unless like too many people unmute, then we might have to set like an order of questions. But if you don't mind giving it another minute, just to, in case anyone's typing up a question in the chat or. I know one of the common complaints for residents here around new developments is the number of units, the lack of parking. Do you have any stance or on how you feel about that? Like say there's a single family or a 2-family home and the developer wants to come in and raise the entire building and put in like 12 units with no parking spaces. That's something that there's always been a lot of pushback in this community about.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the scenario you just gave where there might be a 2-family that a developer wants to knock down and put a 12-unit, just, I mean, that just doesn't make sense to me. You don't go from a 2-family to 12 units with no parking. Those are the kind of developments that I fought years pushing back against as executive director of the Dudley Street Neighbor Initiative, and then tried to push back on whenever I could as chief of economic development. Now, clearly, I didn't supervise or run the BPDA, but you know, one of the changes I would make at the BPDA is I believe that the BPDA should be used to implement community plans. And right now, the BPDA does planning for the private sector. As chief of economic development, I tried to push and I co-chaired what was called the Imagine Boston 2030 plan, where we engage more than 30,000 residents. And we need to continue to do that work and build out plans in our neighborhoods that become the zoning for these neighborhoods. We need to work with our neighborhoods to make sure that we update zoning, because there are too many loopholes with all of these variances, and developers are taking decisions to court and winning because our zoning is so outdated. Part of what I would do at the BPDA is reorganize it so that we can shift community outreach and engagement and planning, the community engagement, the community planning office, to make that the the department that is running the BPDA, and development would respond to that. It's important that we make the BPDA more community plan driven and not private sector driven. And I say that as an executive director who worked with the BPDA to use eminent domain authority, the 121A tool, the demonstration project to build the largest urban land trust in the country. So the BPDA can work for communities, but it has to be structured in a way that it does that. And right now it doesn't. So it is important that that the city go into conversations about development, first prioritizing the neighborhood and the neighborhood's voice in what works in scale and in use. And for me, it would not work to have a 12-family unit built where 2-family used to stand.
Thank you. So I heard from your team that you don't have a whole lot of time because you're rushing around from different meetings. So if you don't mind, we'll take one more question and then additional questions, and we can send them to you via email if you don't mind responding to those, and then we can just include them in a follow-up to everyone in the OHNC community. So our last question here from Andrew Zimmerman is, what does John feel we should do about the housing crisis?
Yeah, so I spent 13 years building affordable housing in Roxbury. I do believe that the way to move forward is to build more affordable housing. Proud of the fact that we increased linkage in Boston by 42% so that commercial buildings can pay a higher fee so that we can invest more in affordable housing in the city of Boston. We need to continue to do that, raise money to build more affordable housing. Building affordable housing at rates that are appropriate for the neighborhoods we build in. Right now, because we use HUD money in a lot of the affordable housing work we do, we use what's called an area median income, AMI. The area median income is too high for most of our neighborhoods. We need to use a neighborhood-based median income so that we're building at an appropriate level of affordability in each neighborhood. So in fact, those neighbors and those families can afford the housing. So for me, building more affordable housing is the way to move forward in the city of Boston. And we could do it in neighborhoods that want to see more building. What we found out in Imagine Boston 2030 is some neighborhoods don't want to see more building happening or more development happening. And so we can go to other neighborhoods that want to see more development happen, have more vacant land, have an appetite for more density. And that's what we should be building, more affordability. And that's what we should be building, more housing, period. We should also be building more around transit infrastructure. It is really critical that we continue to do that. And then, if you allow me, I saw something around historic preservation in the chat. We need to do a study now on historic structures in the city of Boston, and not do a study after developers have purchased it and have filed for development. I'm fighting one now on Shirley Street in Roxbury as part of the Shirley Eustace mansion, which is a historic home. And we learned that the housing developer, and it's exactly your model, 2-family home, developer wants to put 14 units in it. It's outrageous, but it's also a historic house. It's a historic home as part of that estate, and we need to protect it. We need a historic housing, historic structure study done in Boston so that we can identify all of these structures, let developers know not to even think about buying it for some kind of other use, so that we don't have to have those conversations in a confrontational way.
Thank you. We did get some more questions in the chat, but I know that you have to head to another meeting. So I'm going to record all of those questions and send them over via email. When you get a chance, you can respond to them. I'll share them with the group.
Great, I will respond to them. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for the time. One of the questions I often get, and I'll end with this, is how am I going to be different than the Walsh administration? And I think it's important to know, a lot of people think because I was chief of economic development that, I can get done whatever I wanted to get done. I was proud of my years as chief of economic development. We did a lot of good work, but that's the Walsh administration. And I was a member of a cabinet of 14 individuals that had different ideas about how we should move forward. And so we would all present our ideas and try to move it. But ultimately, the man made the decision on how things would work. Look at the work that I did. look at the work that I did at the Dutchess Neighborhood Initiative, and you would know how I would lead. Where I would make the final calls, I would do the things that I've always done, which is to make sure that we center community in the decision-making process for development, and to make sure we build in a sustainable, equitable way so Boston can be a city for the residents who live in Boston today. At the Dutchess Neighborhood Initiative, we had a value called development without displacement. And that's how I would develop, and that's how I would build to make sure that we had sustainability and equity in the foresight as we were building our city. Thanks for the opportunity to talk to you tonight. Check out my website at barrowsformayor.com, and I humbly ask for your support. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. All right, so that was the last item on our agenda. I recorded all the questions that were in the chat. If anybody happens to come up with an additional question, feel free to email us. We can forward it over to John's team and get an answer for you. Or you can always, I guess, reach out directly there. All the information was in the chat, and we'll put that in the meeting minutes as well. So Gail's asking, where do we access the recorded meetings? I'm gonna paste a link. So this is our channel on YouTube. All of the recorded meetings are in there. When we send out the it usually goes along with the meeting minutes or voting results. Since we're not going to have voting results from this meeting because there is no vote, it'll probably go out with the meeting minutes. Sometimes there's a delay just because it takes forever to process on YouTube for some reason. But we send that out in the email and post to Facebook. But you can always just go to that YouTube channel, and all the meeting recordings are there. And I'm recording directly to my computer tonight, so I won't have to wait for it to process in the cloud. So I should be able to get the upload and processing process started on, just see, I gotta copy the sign-in sheet just one more time for folks that haven't had a chance to sign in. I know we had some people that popped in a bit late. And as a reminder, we do not have a meeting in August. We will resume on September 2nd with a design review committee meeting. If you go to our website at ohnc.org, the Zoom links are up there, but we should be meeting in person again in September. And once we have the agenda, that'll be posted there as well. The next regularly scheduled OHNC meeting is September 20th. And that's when we'll get our first introduction to the team that's working on the casket company development. And depending on where they are, I'm not sure if it's just going to be like a, hey, get to know us, or if they'll actually have plans in place. If they do have plans, we'll see if they can come to the October design review committee meeting, so we can review the design. And I believe that should be it for this meeting, unless anybody has anything else they want to discuss. Doesn't sound like it. All right. I suppose that will be all. Thank you all so much. And as soon as I get those answers for the remaining questions that we had from Gail, Joanne, and Donna, I'll send those out and post them to Facebook as well. So thank you all so much for attending. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. See ya.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.